Well, we have reached the eve of the 2023 NFL free agency period starting, and as a result, felt like a perfect time to do another NFL mock draft. And this one is actually a 2-round edition plus a bonus pick at the beginning of round 3 because the Bears right now have pick 65. So I went that deep with this one. So you can check out those picks in the description box below, which is where you will look. And then you will rant and rave about how wrong I am, and it doesn't really matter. But anyways, obviously we've had some big news break in the past couple of days that shakes up the structure of the 2023 NFL Draft. And that big news is the agreed-to trade for the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers, where the Carolina Panthers send pick 9, pick 61, a 2024 first and a 2025 second, along with wide receiver DJ Moore, to the Chicago Bears for the first overall pick in this 2023 NFL Draft. For the Bears, I've already done a video that you can check out on this channel talking about that trade and how I thought they got really good value, how the job's not finished, and how it's great to get all of those additional picks, but if you ultimately don't do a good job of drafting, none of that shit matters. And all of that is true, believe me. But when looking at this deal for the Carolina Panthers, it is at least, if nothing else, an acknowledgement by them, their organization, that everything about the Matt Fool era was freaking stupid, and the fact that they kept trying to piecemeal it with retread veteran quarterbacks that were high picks that failed with their previous teams is not a recipe for success. So you could talk about, well, it's interesting you would trade DJ Moore in order to move up to get a quarterback, and then he comes in and he doesn't have DJ Moore. Yeah, that's true, but at the end of the day, if you feel like you've got a quarterback that can be that dude, that wide receiver is secondary in terms of importance. The Panthers know. They weren't winning shit with DJ Moore. They can win just as little shit without him, but if they can get in a position to get that quarterback in this draft, then all the other stuff will start to fall into play. It really, really will. Which will now beg the question of who will the Carolina Panthers take with that first overall pick. And you'll see a lot of people, I'm sure, put in their mock drafts that it's going to be Bryce Young. And I'm sorry, I am still in this place where I think far more teams will have Bryce Young as at least QB3, if not QB4 in this draft, than they will QB1. Because I think they're going to look at Bryce Young and say, you know, do you really want to take a 5'10 quarterback, number 1 overall, that lacks any truly elite or special physical talent? Would you, as a general manager, want to stake your reputation, your job, your career on the line with Bryce Young? And it's easy to say that as a theoretical exercise when it's not actually, you're bacon on the fryer. You say, yeah, I certainly would. I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. Now imagine the pressure of that decision actually counting and mattering for you directly, personally. I bet some of you would feel a little bit different. Right now, and I've certainly got plenty of time to change my mind here, just starting my process of grading prospects, and you'll start seeing those videos get uploaded later this week, obviously starting with the quarterback class this year. Right now, I'm projecting C.J. Stroud as the quarterback that the Panthers would most like. But I could be changed. I could be swayed otherwise. I absolutely could be. They could be in love with Will Levis for all the hell we know. We don't know right now. We're just coming to the realization that the Carolina Panthers now have the number 1 pick in this draft. But obviously, whoever Carolina doesn't take at quarterback, Houston's got to be taking one of them at number 2, and that's where it could get interesting too, is who are they going to take? So let's say Carolina takes C.J. Stroud, then Houston's got a decision between Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and somebody's going to be really, really tantalized with Anthony Richardson. And I would not be surprised if he's the first or second quarterback taken. Sure, he could be the 4th one taken. That seems to be the safest pick right now, either him or Levis. But I wouldn't be surprised if Richardson goes above either Young and or Stroud. Here in this case, just for the kicks and giggles of it, I've got him going number 2 to the Houston Texans because If you talk about the Texans, you could say, hey, you could make a little bit of a case that even if Richardson is raw, you could have Davis Mills there get a little more action and maybe play just well enough where he could be a trade piece, and then you allow Richardson to take over and man the helm. You could make an argument there. I also think there's a very strong chance that quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3 in this draft and that Arizona ultimately peels out of where they're at right now. And it could be just as something as simple as they might peel back from 3 to 4 and Indianapolis makes sure that they get the third quarterback and they get the guy that they like the most. That is certainly a possible play here. But I've got Arizona for now taking Will Anderson, and then the Colts taking Bryce Young. And then the Raiders taking Will Levis. So you have 4 quarterbacks in this draft going in the top 7. Certainly possible, right? It is certainly possible. Some other things that really stand out to me with this mock draft as I'm putting it together. You know, for those that are going to ask about, well, what about the Bears? I'll talk about them in a moment. But you look at this draft and you can see there's some decent edge rush talent there. It'll be really interesting with some of the off-the-field questions now about Jalen Carter. It's really hard to gauge, like, where he goes. Some of this stuff may not matter much, and he ends up going in the top 5 to 6 picks. Possible. It could be there's more underlying the surface there, and that he takes a little more of a precipitous drop. At this time, hard for me to gauge. In 5-6 weeks, I feel like I'll have a much better idea of where Jalen Carter's draft stock ultimately is. But you look at this draft class, there's going to be some type of run on those top 3 or 4 offensive tackles, somewhere I think in the teens, talking about Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, Skoronski. They're going to, I would think, go pretty close together somewhere there in the teens. Going to be talk about wide receivers, and when the first wide receiver goes off the board, in this case I've got Smith-Njigba from Ohio State going number 12, followed up closely by Quentin Johnson at 14. Ironically, I think it's a much better tight end class at the top than it is a wide receiver class, and I've got, you know, a couple of tight ends going in the top 20, and, you know, one of them could go a little bit higher. For those of you asking about the Bears and what my thought process is here, and you might be getting to rant and rave at me about having them take a defensive lineman in the top 10, look, the Bears need to address both trenches this offseason between the draft, the trade market, free agency, all of that. When you look at maybe the Philadelphia Eagles as a template for how the Bears should be thinking about building their team, you want to say, well, what about the Chiefs? They won the championship. Yes, the Chiefs also have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. The Bears don't have either of that. In fact, they're the dumb dicks that hired a defensive-minded head coach in a league where offensive-minded head coaches go the furthest now. So, whatever. But you look at Van Ness, feels like the type of guy that Ryan Poles and the Bears and Eberflus would fall in love with. And you look at the way the Eagles were built, this was a team that success on defense was primarily due to their ability to get after the starting quarterback. 69 sacks. They had, you know, a bunch of guys with double-digit sacks. And they're going to want edge rushers in Chicago that can get after it. And then you look at what I did with them later on in the draft. You know, I certainly think now with them having 2 second-round picks, I still would love to see them trade down from 9, personally, my opinion. But if they don't, I could see a guy like Van Ness being in play for them. I could also see a corner in play for them, because that's where the position in the draft and the value of the talents could meet up. Somebody like Christian Gonzalez or Devon Witherspoon makes a ton of sense. And you're going to say, well, don't the Bears already have Johnson and Gordon? They do, and they could use another cornerback. It might allow Kyler Gordon to slide and play the nickel and slot position where he might be better suited. You know, you look at the Eagles, they had 3 guys that could cover along with that pass rush. You know, the Bears could sit there at pick 9, and I'm seeing some of this shit about Bijan Robinson. He's not even running back 1 in this draft, so why the hell are you talking about taking him in the top 10? But if they traded back deeper into round 1, running back is certainly a possibility. But I could certainly see not even just offensive line being a focus with that first-round pick. You could see tight end get into the mix. And you'll see that while I don't have them taking a tight end at 9, I do have them taking a tight end in the second round with Sam Laporte from Iowa. You know, and some of you are like, well, why would you have them taking then also a running back at Charbonnet in round 2? Because they need a guy that's better than David Montgomery to be that featured back. That's fucking why. So some of you are going to look at this and say, man, it feels kind of hypocritical. You've got them taking 2 defensive players and 2 offensive players with those 4 picks. Like I said, I don't expect them to be at all those draft slots that they're at right now, frankly. Furthermore, this team has needs all over the goddamn place. I'm also trying to balance this out a little bit of not just what I would do, but also what I could envision the Bears potentially doing as well, mixing some needs, mixing some value in there, and so forth. But, at the end of the day, I would love to see them focus heavily on the offensive side of the ball in the draft. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And I certainly think they should. But you can't take a much lesser offensive player when you've got some real guys that could be defensive studs either. Like, you got to balance all of this out. But anyways, those are my picks. You could feel free to knock them all you want in the comment section. I love it. Like I said, I'll be over the next couple of days as the NFL free agency starts. I'm sure I'll have some reaction videos, especially very, very Bears-centric. And then as the week starts to peter out a little bit, that's when I'm going to start getting into the scouting reports for the 2023 NFL Draft. So stay tuned for all that. Yeah!